we can say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
We have the explicit tag for a reason.
This is a base level argument to a higher level morality.
I get paid to science?
To science as much as one can science.
What the hell was my point?
Trigger warning. The Brainstorm podcast will criticize your most cherished beliefs. We attack nonsense in all its forms and discuss difficult subjects. If you peddle pseudoscience, supernatural woo, or religious dogma, then this is not your safe place. This is the home of hardcore skepticism.
And we're back. To those listening live or to our patrons, welcome back. For those listening weekly, welcome to the Shift to Reason Radio, the Brainstorm production that tries to educate and inform.
What about people
Shut up,
listening
Gumby.
strongly instead of weekly?
Shut up. We'll take
What about
current
people who
events.
listen intermittently?
For those listening to the special Gumby feed, it's turned off.
Or monthly.
We'll take current events and
Regularly.
important skeptical topics and try to analyze them critically.
Try.
Yeah, try. Remember that we're live on Spreaker.com every second Friday, and today is July 21st, 2017. I'm still joined by Angela,
Hello.
Lisa,
Hello.
Renee,
Hello.
Destin,
Yo.
and Leo,
Hey there.
with the always amazing Dave on sound.
Sound.
Sound, Dave.
Sound.
Dave on
3D
sound. Amazing,
sound.
Dave.
Amazing.
All right, before we get into our Woo report, we actually have a comment on our live feed.
We have a listener.
We have a listener.
One listener. We love you.
Lachlan says, thoughts on depression and addiction in the two recent deaths of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington. So he's curious what we think. How are the two treated in society, and how could they be treated? How could they be better addressed and dealt with?
Look, we're not smart or anything. We can't give you good advice.
I don't know their specific situations.
I can speak a little bit to the music industry and,
There you go,
and
Dave.
how that works because I've been there. I feel like, the music industry is a very special case for a lot of people because of the kind of atmosphere you're in. If you're somebody with mental health issues, I mean, first of all, that actually ties into creativity pretty well for a lot of these people. Like, I mean, it is an
Right.
emotional process. It is a very abstract process at times. So, I mean, first of all, you're going to have a lot of people, I think, who have that kind of mindset in some of these creative fields.
Right.
First of all, or if they have mental health issues or whatever. And then you think about it, like it coupled with all the things that come with the music industry. It's like, I mean, it's a really difficult place to exist in. Like your entire existence is kind of constantly on all the time. You have to be a certain personality all the time,
Right.
everywhere. Like the stress is very high. And, people might argue, oh, well, they're rich and all that, but it's really not the same as it used to be either. I mean, I don't think the circumstances musicians are living in are very healthy as a whole. Like you have to work 80 hours a week to make money, basically, right?
Right.
And then you have people who are very isolated emotionally because, I mean, they're celebrities, right? So they can't really confide in that many people, or they always have to worry about people trying to cross them or do all these things. So I just feel like the circumstances of the music industry are really a bad place for people with mental health issues, but yet creativity sometimes is almost playing into that too. So it's like, I can understand, I guess, why a lot of people get to that point in the industry. Like even Robin Williams, right?
Right.
Like in different industries, it's the film industry, but there's a lot of similarities there. And yeah, I don't know where they can really get the proper kind of support within all of that. Like is professional help even enough for them at that point?
Isn't there that show Rehab or whatever? Remember that show?
Yeah.
Celebrity Rehab.
Celebrity Rehab. That's where they got to go.
Well, yeah, on TV.
Well, that one didn't work out so well for most of them.
So yeah, their situation is hard to compare to like regular people, like everyday people's struggles. Like they're similar, but they're also not. I'm not, stalked 24 hours a day and working all day every day in that kind of scenario. So I really can't speak to like how that would affect my mental health, right? Like,
But there's another side to that too. I mean, you could also be on the downs. You're not so popular. You're not so, and you don't get that high from people recognizing you. Or, as your fame dwindles, that can also be you're struggling to be recognized, and that probably could be very painful and difficult to deal with.
But I also think that it's the general stigma is no different from what
that too.
Yeah, normal, and it's just amplified by your public exposure. I mean, the stigma is even worse because it's even harder to speak out because everybody will know. Like every tabloid magazine will publish stuff.
And that can affect your career, right?
Yeah,
like it's not as simple as just having like a problem. Like
nobody wants to work with the mental case.
But the opposite side of that is people like Chris Cornell or fucking Robin Williams. These people have had resources.
Yeah.
And they probably use them, but their resources far outweigh. Like if I was suffering from manic depression, I still have to just go to work, otherwise I lose my house.
That's true.
Right? That's another difference. They have the resources to.
The problem is Robin Williams was a slightly different case.
I'm just using it because he was wealthier, but
wealthy, yeah.
So is Chris Cornell, though.
Yeah, and
to a point.
Yeah. And the other thing is has it come out yet really what happened to Chris Cornell? Like we're far too early yet here to know what's going on with Bennington either.
Right.
Yeah. All I've heard is that he hung himself, and
well, there's a lot of all of this is speculation, but there's a lot of speculation about the fact that he hung himself on Cornell's birthday.
Yeah.
Because apparently they were
super close.
They were super close.
Yeah.
Because he sang at his funeral.
Yeah.
Chester sang at Chris Cornell's funeral.
Well, and of the two, I think people like our age, like Renee, Dave, me, we
old people.
Yeah, we're well, and people that grew up listening to Cornell, right? He made it. He survived. He's one of the few that made it through without ODing or without having and still maintaining a career. Yeah. And so I think that he hit me harder than Chester did, obviously. But
yeah, because it looked like
he had survived.
Yeah,
there was an article that talked about that. I think like in the race to survival, so many of the musicians and people we looked up to at that time from that age didn't survive, and Chris Cornell was one of those iconic people who managed to make it through and give everybody a little glimmer of hope that if you have if you have issues with depression or issues with mental health, then you can make it out on the other side.
Well, so did Eddie Vedder, but nobody cares about Eddie Vedder.
And now he's going to be depressed. See, nobody cares.
Yeah.
No. The other thing too is that like, they're asking. She's asking, or sorry, Lachlan. I suppose, is asking about they is asking about like how could it be better addressed? Well, like I think you guys mentioned the stigma thing. I think that's a big part of it, right? Like we need to not view it as a weakness.
Yeah.
Addiction as well. Like they're not weaknesses. These are just issues to solve. That's it. Like they're not.
Yeah. Initially, I was actually going to say a little bit before the music break because in my past comments regarding Chester Bennington, I have not been so kind.
I mean, there is that. Like, when people don't like Linkin Park, they loathe Linkin Park.
And I read numerous articles from him or about him interviewed when he was talking about alcoholism and drug use. And I mean, at the time, I was an asshole. So I was pretty harsh, and I thought that this is just he's just playing this up, and I thought that he was just, but it was in the years since I've learned quite a bit, and this is something that is quite it's hard. Addiction is an issue that is really hard for people to deal with, and it's not something that it should be vilified or called out as weak for.
Very good job for changing your mind, Corey. So good.
Oh, wow.
Truth sticker.
You did not do well at the not patronizing.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
That was awesome. That was awesome. One thing I'd like to regarding Gumby's point about.
I had a point.
Did you?
the thing
Did she just? Did
He's
Angela
literally
just generously
panting right
give
now.
you
Did
one?
I give you one? Just talking about having more resources. It's just another like. I think you could still have money and still have reasons not to ask for help or seek professionals to assist you in your issues. Another thing too, there are those people that have high functioning anxiety, have high functioning issues. They're still able to, on the outside, look like they have it together, but on the inside, they're completely losing their minds. And that's another thing. I mean, yeah, he might have lasted longer, but
also, and not to be, I don't want to depress anyone who's going through any sort of mental illness. I just use an expression, but or having any sort of personal issues, like, whatever you're going through. But just
you're not
because
good at being a human.
I'm not good at being a human. Just because you go and get professional help or you can afford it or whatever, it doesn't mean you're immediately better. It doesn't mean you're, it's much easier just not to have the problem than it is. It's not like now I've admitted it. I go to
that's not the point I was making about having
No, I'm just saying, I'm just pointing this out. Like, just because you're not 100%, don't think that, I don't know, you're doing it wrong, or it is actually just hard. It's not something you can necessarily totally fix.
To quote Dave Mustaine, addiction is like
fuck Metallica.
Well, there's that, but there's also he who famously had his own bouts with addiction. He's like, addiction is like a 900-pound gorilla making love to a 900-pound gorilla. You're done when the gorilla's done. He famously went through rehab like 13 or 14 times
before he became a born again douchebag.
He's one of the rare guys that seemed to be more normal when he was strung out. But
but to tie into Lisa's thought there, like I think exactly like the factors that surround somebody in that industry are like really compounding on somebody, right? So it's like, they can go get help and they're not going to get better because ultimately the situation they're in is awful. And it's like, if you have mental health issues, I think it just makes it worse being in that kind of scenario. Just think of the kind of stress and the kind of like the high functioning ability they have to stay in that industry and stay relevant and to stay profitable and all those things. And if you put somebody with mental health issues in that situation, like, how do you think they're going to do? Right. Like it's a really hard place to survive,
With Linkin Park, their whole kind of thing was, the darker side of stuff. So, I mean, that's where they drew their inspiration from. So, I mean, that's where they kind of dwelled. So,
and even Richard Simmons, like the podcast Missing Richard Simmons, Don't Make Fun of Me, is really interesting. But they talk about why he just completely and utterly disappeared from public life, because he personally contacted people. He had his own issues from his childhood about how he was treated, and then he, as a fitness guru, he attracted people that were super needy and super broken, and he had personal relationships with him, and he went on cruises, and he had he was super involved with people in people's lives, and it got scary. Some of the people that he helped were really kind of almost stalkerish and obsessed with him. And I mean, that sort of thing takes its toll when you're in the public eye, and you have to be super energetic and wear sparkly shorts all the time and have a certain persona.
And wear sparkly shorts all the time.
Make people feel good and give your I don't want this to sound wooish, but just like pay attention to people and spend time and energy on people. And then not really have much
that was
left
kind
over.
of his shtick, right?
That was totally his shtick.
Have you ever seen the thing he did on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Oh, every time I need a Richard Simmons fix, I watch that. I just giggle.
That podcast was so amazing, and I loved it.
I've been meaning to listen to it. I love Richard Simmons.
If you want a good example of somebody who's been in those situations and got through, like Trent Reznor to me is kind of the ideal example of this, because he had to retreat from the industry for quite a long time to really get his stuff together. And if you look at him now, he's one of the healthiest people in the industry. Like,
his first 3 albums were about depression.
Well, really, right? Like, I mean, he wrote a whole album about suicide. So, and a beautiful album. But I mean, he had a huge drug problem. He had all kinds of mental health issues. Like, he and he had to step away for long enough to deal with that before he was able to come back and function within it.
One thing I think is really hard to do is to compare one person's issues with another, though.
That's true.
Like the celebrity lifestyle, sure, they have their challenges, but so does the broke-ass lifestyle.
Yeah, but it's a little different, though. It is slightly different.
Yeah. It depends on how you handle things and what affects you. So
it also doesn't diminish somebody. You can compare them, but you're not diminishing them.
Yeah.
Somebody who might be dealing with it in a more public eye, that's one thing.
But again, there's a myth that celebrities are rich, though, too. I think there's a myth that these guys were just like crazy rich, but I don't really think that's the music industry is a different place than other industries. Like there's a lot of impressions that we have out there of how people are surviving, but in reality, it's one of the worst industries to work in for profit. Like it's really hard to make money now. Mm-hmm. And I mean the people up and coming now going through it, like you watch them, there's bands that you think should be like really famous and profitable, and they're only living off of tours. If they didn't have the tours, they would be broke.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that you have to work that hard to maintain that kind of facade is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Not to say there aren't people out there who are like mega rich, like the Biebers and the Drakes and people like that, but that's very rare now in the industry. It's not. Yeah. It's not that.
Yeah.
And I guarantee that these are two examples of people who aren't at that profit level anymore. So they have to work even harder to maintain like where they're at. That's my guess anyway. But
that seems reasonable.
Not to say that, not to take it away from somebody who doesn't, who like the average person, I'm not saying their struggle is like easier or anything like that. I'm just saying that it is kind of there's a different nature to it, if that makes sense. Like, like, I don't know, but
everybody's got their struggle, and if you have mental illness, then it's way harder.
I'm just thinking that these people in particular, like they're in a very specific situation that's hard for anybody else to really understand until you've been there, right? Like, like it's and again, I don't want to sit here and cry for them and blah blah blah, but at the same time, it's true. Like I can't imagine trying to deal with that. I mean, I've had a very small level of success in this industry, and that's hard enough as it is for somebody.
Right.
Now, would you say it's different because they put themselves in that position?
Maybe, right? Maybe, yeah.
Not to detract from that, because, and I'm comparing to people in the military that have PTSD from serving and stuff, and it's easy for somebody that's post-military with PTSD to get a service animal. It's impossible for somebody that's a mail carrier or somebody that. Or I guess firefighters, first aid people, ambulance people have a better chance of getting a service animal. But
certain industry, I could see that.
Yeah.
Certain
because it's more socially acceptable for them to have PTSD.
Exactly, and it's accepted that. Yeah. Oh well, it makes sense that they have it.
It's better known.
Whereas people that go to the to any of the other things that you get PTSD from anything.
Yeah.
Anything that's traumatic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But only trauma by a job that you decided is what you wanted to do is valid.
Not
only
everybody
trauma by explosion is valid.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets PTSD from their job either, right?
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's very common to develop it like through like domestic violence, for example, or if you're a victim of a crime. Or,
sure. But I was speaking. That's why I was speaking specifically about the people that are coming back from overseas that have PTSD from.
And they should get support, but so should everyone else.
Sure, but they also signed up for it.
Which is because they signed up for it doesn't mean we don't have a responsibility to help them deal with their terrible mental illness that they have to deal with.
Right, but we don't have. What I'm saying is we don't have more responsibility to help them than we do the person that didn't sign up for something that was
done to them.
That was
potentially traumatic.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair.
Anyway,
good question. Thanks, Lachlan.
Yeah, thanks, Lachlan. Yeah. That was prompted a very good discussion.
I think I have more research to do too. I think based on what's going on.
Right.
Think a bit. Yeah.
All right,
we'll get back to it.
Part 2.
We will come back to that sometime. Let's do some woo report.
Woohoo!
Woo.
I'm not a scientist, but if I can tell you your science sucks, your science really sucks.
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit. Fuck.
All right, Renee.
In a weird way, this almost connects. In a weird way.
Like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon weird?
Yeah, almost. Well, it's just that
6, isn't it?
Not for me.
He needs that extra.
He's 1 degree further than
he needs that
else.
extra degree from Kevin Bacon.
I intentionally distance myself.
Anyway, there's apparently death metal yoga. So it's doing yoga to heavy metal. Death metal.
Nice.
When are you signing up?
I don't know. I did
Tomorrow.
check out a couple of the videos. I don't know. It's
So does it go like, I greet the sun berserker?
not quite. Not quite.
Damn
But-
right.
But
Would you
they,
like to bow to the moon berserker?
they changed some of the poses instead of warrior one. It's now it's I looked it up, but I'm lazy. But they changed it to like it's now the fuck you pose. So you're standing there with the finger up, and
yes.
And some of the breathing exercises they turned them into like you just do these primal scream exercises and stuff like that.
So it's not yoga if you scream Slayer.
It's death metal yoga.
It's death. Yeah.
If you scream Slayer.
If you scream Slayer. If you're listening to Slayer as you're doing it.
Right.
Because that's the thing is it's more of about, it's an exercise. It's about,
Why is this woo?
It's woo because it's yoga.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is like when I sent it to you, I said, this is woo I can get behind. Like,
But so I have a question. Is it do they still preach the whole chakra shit?
No, actually,
is it just like the exercise yoga?
The stretching and the exercise?
It's much more the stretching and the exercise, the
set to heavy metal.
It's about venting that, as they said, venting that negative energy. Like the way she put it in the article in the interview, she was just like, yeah, sure, there's mosh pits, but when people leave the mosh pits, they're happy. They've vented, like
unless they got hurt
or unconscious.
Yeah, but then again, I
don't like getting elbowed in the boob.
There are mores about that.
Not
You're not
cathartic?
supposed to happen,
Nope.
but
Well, this is kind of like listening to death metal and punching a punching bag.
yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's kind of
But psychologically, you're actually not supposed to hit things because that encourages you to think that hitting things will relieve your stress.
And
see, I'd have to argue with that one because to me, it's a venting of energy.
Well, there is the cathartic aspect, but most of the evidence says that it actually encourages violent behavior rather than slows it.
Interesting.
Sorry, as a guy that takes Krav Maga, I don't know about that.
What's this? A Ferris Bueller's Desert Storm.
But at any rate, that's
that's what the psychological evidence.
I will give
has
you
said.
the raised eyebrow on that one, but
sure.
I mean, but then again, it's the same thing where it's like it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a timid person by nature, and you're not into loud music and hitting things hard, then it's not going to be good for you. But I'm not.
Sometimes it helps if you're timid. If you're just shy, you're like,
what it is. I think it's one of those things. Whatever works for you, because I mean that's just it. Is for some people doing interpretive dance helps them get their bad feelings out. To me, I'd be like, what the fuck is this shit?
some people like to do goat yoga. Have baby goats climb on them when they're in downward dog.
Some people like to do two goats.
That too.
There's also that.
That's bestiality.
That's
a little bit different.
Yeah, that's
Some
illegal.
things are different. Some things.
That's illegal in most states. Well, a couple of them they're encouraged.
I'm still not
Further
entirely
south you get,
sure
the
about
less of a gray area.
Still not entirely sure about the goat climbing on you while you're doing downward facing dog.
There are waiting
seems-
lists for these classes.
Goats
People are
heavy
giving up
and-
their
and
like fancy
downward facing
jobs
dog
to
is
teach
hard
goat
enough to
yoga.
do
There's
as
like
it
little
is.
goats.
Oh, just little tiny
They're
goats.
tiny
Once
goats.
again, it
The back
proves
flipping goats.
Baby goats.
there is money in woo.
I mean, I don't know.
There's beer yoga. There's also beer yoga. There's wine and yoga. There's all kinds of things.
I could get behind something like a Black Sabbath beer yoga.
Yeah.
I could do that.
And that's the
Belching
thing
yoga.
is it's whatever
Belching yoga
Belching yoga.
And then
seems good.
inevitable farting yoga. 'Cause
You have to get the
In
gases
with
out
the good
somehow.
air, out with the bad.
It's the natural way to do hot yoga.
yes,
There you go.
sweat and farts.
Humidifies.
It's Richard Simmons' new.
No, it's a new Megadeth song.
Sweating to the farts.
It's Richard Simmons' new workout video.
I feel like this is circling the drain.
What?
Sweating bullets.
Yeah.
Oh shit. So what do we conclude about death metal yoga?
If you're into the scene, then it's fine.
Cool.
Like, and that's the thing is they were talking to her about possibly going to do something at, like, say, Walken and try to do, like, get a big group.
Oh yeah.
At some of these festivals to do death metal yoga.
Nice.
So most of the people that are into death metal that I know, death metal hot yoga would be really bad.
Mosh pits are sweaty though.
And death metal naked yoga though.
Death metal naked yoga.
Hot yoga
That
isn't
might be-
naked yoga. What do you think, dude? Like, no.
No, that was just the natural progression of my thinking.
No, it's because you saw the pictures from this article. That's what happened.
I never even saw the article.
Oh, okay.
I think it's good to see those variations of yoga happening because it's very specific and there's a lot of quote unquote yoga snobs out there that are
Well,
like,
that's-
no,
that's-
it should be this
Well,
way.
that's what I think. There's that idea that
You have to be skinny. Wear Lululemon yoga pants.
and
But
listen to
snobs.
Yanni and Yanni.
But nothing has more snobs than metal.
Metal elitists ruin all metal.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Is that
The only thing
right?
that ruins metal is metal elitists.
All right.
The only thing that ruins metal and yoga is death metal yoga snobs.
I was going to say this is going to be the breeding ground for the ultimate snob.
That's right.
Captain
There's the
Snobberson or
title.
something.
Death metal yoga
Death
elitists.
death metal yoga snobs. Death metal
DMY.
yoga beer snobs. Beer yoga snobs.
Yes, I like where this is going.
Put in the beer.
This
snobs
isn't real
and you
metal.
go.
I can't yoga to this.
There's no way I can.
Child's pose.
I can only downward dog to anal cunt.
This is totally not aligning my chakras.
I'm all messed up.
Now you have a title for this episode. I can only downward dog to anal cunt. That is so clearly the episode
Yeah,
title.
it's
How many downloads are you gonna get? You're gonna get so many.
or 6.
Hey, unless you get those metal elitists that are like, hey, you mentioned anal cunt, but you didn't play any, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I've never heard of this band.
You're a
Now I feel like I should
poser.
check them out.
Well, only if you're not easily offended.
Apparently so.
Well, if you don't listen to death metal, you probably won't understand the lyrics.
Probably not. No.
There's kind of a trigger warning in the name of the band, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
honestly,
kind of.
like you just
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, I've got a story about cancer
Yay.
because it's fun. So I got this
Super
story.
upbeat.
Yeah, I got this story from a friend's post and he shared it from some other guy's post where the guy like rewrote or copied and pasted an entire article into his Facebook post, which is weird.
Hate when people do that.
So yeah. I really hate when people do that. The original article was from newsrescue.com.
They're legit.
That sounds reputable.
And it came out on June 20th, 2017, but it was a republished older article that came out in September 23rd, 2016.
I thought you were going to say like 1927 or something.
Well, no, because then it wouldn't be on the internet.
I read the article. Was it written by like a Russian, I don't know, prostitute or something? It's just so. Anyway, sorry, continue.
It's
it was
bad.
probably written in
It's
Russian
bad.
and then Google translated.
For real, like it's something like that because it's even like negating the content. Like,
Yeah,
the
like-
writing is bad. Like
I rather would rather kind of ignore the article itself and kind of I'm going to address some of the content of their claims they make. It uses a book called A World Without Cancer by G. Edward Griffin as its source. And it starts off with the conspiracy that this book is being stopped from being translated into many of the world's languages by big medicine or whatever.
Of course.
Yeah. And the claim is that there is no disease called cancer and that it is merely a deficiency of the vitamin B17.
Is there even a B-17?
There is not.
So we're automatically deficient.
Well, fuck. We're all getting cancer.
So good old Snopes did way more of the work than I ever need to. B17 is also known as Laetrile or amygdalin. Mm-hmm. And the notion of vitamin B17 was essentially made up by a man named Ernest Krebs Jr., inventor of a partially synthetic chemical called Laetrile that was at one point rebranded as a vitamin in an effort to get around FDA new drug regulations. No official pharmacopoeia lists it as a vitamin, and it does not possess any of the required characteristics of a vitamin.
So it's a super vitamin.
Yeah. In a hearing about a 1976 injunction demanding that a company cease selling supplements with this compound, a federal court described the vitamin defense as patently absurd and a transparent attempt to avoid drug labeling provisions of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So it's not a vitamin.
That's funny because honestly, reading the article, I didn't even question whether or not it was a vitamin. It just seemed so silly that one would think that.
Yeah, well,
cancer would be a
vitamin
deficiency. Like, how would that? It doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like the growths that I see every day on CT scans
come from a vitamin.
From that,
especially seeing that whatever that lateral word is. When I Googled this, I went to the Wikipedia. Yeah, I did it lazy. I'll admit it. But it all comes from, or it's all seemed to be connected to stuff like apricot seeds, which is a natural source of cyanide.
Yes, and actually cyanide is very much connected to this.
Yeah.
What was his name again?
Ernest Krebs Jr.
Okay. So what you're saying is that the FTC won't let Ernie be and won't let him sell his B17. So it's an Eminem song. So.
I hate you.
that was creative.
Very good, Gumby. Very good.
That was quick.
Nice.
You did that on the fly. Very impressive.
Very Eminem-esque.
So I moved on from Snopes to Quackwatch. So amygdalin, the original compound that was turned into Laetrile, which was then later called B17, is a component that was originally isolated by chemists, some French chemists in 1830. And the presence of certain enzymes in it breaks down into glucose, benzaldehyde. Yeah, sure, let's say that. And hydrogen cyanide, as you were saying, cyanide. In 1892, it was tested as an anti-cancer agent, but it was found to be ineffective and too toxic to be used.
So it's covered up by Big Pharma even in 1892.
Even in 1892. In the 1950s, Ernest Krebs Sr. and Ernest Krebs Jr. started using a purified form of it to treat cancer patients. In 1962, Krebs Sr. said that he theorized that cancer proteins would be broken down by an enzyme he had prepared when he was a pharmacy student. But it was too toxic, so he boiled it and got better results. Quote unquote.
He
better
boiled
results.
it?
Yeah.
Oh. Who knew?
There's another story about how he came to discover Laetrile, but it's not very, I don't know. It didn't make much sense. Yeah. It didn't make much sense. The theories behind the use of Laetrile are almost as convoluted as the history of its creation. That's actually a direct quote. In 1902, a Scottish embryologist, John Beard, theorized that cancer cells and cells produced during pregnancy called trophoblasts are one and the same. According to Beard, trophoblasts invade the uterine wall to form the placenta and the umbilical cord. The pancreas then produces chymotrypsin, which destroys the trophoblasts. Beard postulated that if the pancreas fails to produce enough chymotrypsin, the trophoblasts circulate through the body of both the mother and the infant, making them vulnerable throughout life to cancer.
This is not true.
No, none of this is factual.
I'm just saying it's not true.
Yes. Yes, you're the cancer person.
I actually was on board with the article when it said there is no such thing as cancer. I'm like, oh, they're going to go into the fact that cancer is like a heterogeneous set of diseases and it's not really just one thing called cancer. No, it didn't go that way. Mm-mm. Sorry, continue.
No, it definitely did not go that way, did it?
No, it was very ire-inducing.
In 1945, Krebs Jr. founded a foundation to develop and apply Beard's theories. In 1950, the Krebs published a version of Beard's thesis and stated that amygdalin, that's Laetril's natural form, kills trophoblast cells where trypsin isn't present or can't kill the trophoblast cells. They claim that cancer tissues are rich in an enzyme that causes amygdalin to release cyanide, which destroys the cancer cells. So they insist that this drug, B17, Laetril, amygdalin, goes into the body. Cancer cells release an enzyme that turns this chemical into cyanide, which kills the cancer cells.
But not you.
And
because
no healthy
cyanide
cells.
disappears.
And no healthy cells. So, yeah.
It's magic.
How did they...
It's like a smart bomb.
Well, there is such a thing as called targeted therapy where certain drugs only attack cancer cells and others, but you require like a certain molecular label, and it has to like stick to the stuff that's bad, right? Like it has to differentiate.
It has to somehow know the difference.
It can't just be like, well, if something's like generally cytotoxic, meaning it generally kills cells, which is what chemo and radiation is,
right?
But then it makes you sick. Right? Anyways,
no, fair enough.
Sorry, continue.
And when cyanide enters your bloodstream, it pretty much just kills you.
I would say that's cytotoxic generally, not only for cancer cells.
Yeah.
Not specific.
According to this theory, non-cancerous tissues are protected by another enzyme, which makes the cyanide harmless. So,
but doesn't really explain the mechanism.
No.
I mean, and the thing is, I've said this before, any article that says it kills cancer.
Big C.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they were correct when they said cancer is not a disease. It's not one type of disease. That is very true.
Because there's a bunch of different fucking cancers.
There's like thousands of different cancers. Maybe is it thousands?
Well, there's basically as many types of cancer as you have types of cells.
That's right. But some of them get classified together.
Sure.
Right.
Anyways.
For ease, I guess.
Like cervical cancer and head and neck cancer, generally just both types of squamous cell carcinoma. Like
and the type of cancer you get from tanning.
Melanoma. Well, squamous cell carcinoma is one type of skin cancer, but it's not the dangerous kind. Melanoma is the bad one. That one goes to your brain. That one's bad. Don't do that one. Try to get basal cell. Basal cell, super treatable.
I'll try and get that one.
Try to get basal cell.
Yeah, don't do the bad one.
Yeah.
Super common. Basal cell.
Don't get the one Stuart McLean got.
That's melanoma.
Don't get melanoma.
Don't get melanoma.
So
Bob Marley had it too. So it killed him.
So after enforcement agencies began trying to ban Laetrile as a drug, the Krebs claimed that amygdalin is a vitamin, B17, and that cancer is caused by a deficiency of this vitamin. And the question is, is there any evidence to support this claim? And of course, the answer is no. One of the first practitioners to use Laetrile was Arthur T. Harris, MD, who had trained in Scotland and reportedly studied embryology under John Beard. He submitted a report to Coronet magazine, which claimed that he was working on something out here that is going to be the answer to cancer if there ever will be one. But the magazine did not report what he was doing. At that time, the California Medical Association was receiving inquiries about Laetrile. When members of its cancer commission approached Krebs Sr., he claimed that limited trials of toxicity in animals had been performed with satisfactory results, but that the results had been destroyed. So they don't have any record of these tests and trials that they claim to have done. They don't have any evidence at all to support their claims, and it goes against general knowledge of how things work.
Well, it might not have gone against general knowledge of how things worked in the 70s. I don't think there was a good understanding of how that works now. But now we have no way of understanding.
Yeah. So in 2016, when people
how
are
cancer works.
Yeah.
There's no reason to think it would work.
No, yeah, exactly. Vitamin B17 isn't a thing. It's not a vitamin.
It's not a fucking thing.
A made up chemical, a made up name meant to disguise the chemical, which is a version of amygdalin, which supposedly fights cancer by reacting with an enzyme that turns it into cyanide that kills cancer cells but doesn't kill other cells. So that's that.
I guess what made me angry reading the article is that if you're not scientifically literate, if you're not a very skeptical person, you could read this, and I worry that people with cancer will say, "Oh, well, I'll just do this. This sounds so much better than the
problem is
chemotherapy
people
or
do.
Exactly,
You know.
or surgery." And it's just it's just very it's kind of, I mean, the writing is terrible, but like it if you didn't know better, it might actually convince you that you might as well try this. And the thing is, you take such a risk by not getting treated sooner than later, right? They're at the very least making an informed decision about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do.
Well, this was shared on like an actual personal friends page, not a skeptic friends, not a skeptical network of group.
I would not say that that's, oh really? And they shared it as like a bad example of something bad or something.
They shared this as an example of like, here's this breakthrough thing that nobody's talking about.
There's a reason no one's talking about it. It's bullshit.
Who the fuck are you friends with, dude?
People from Weyburn.
Yep.
I just don't. Yeah.
I'm done correcting them.
Well,
I'm done.
But stuff like this makes me anxious because I can't correct them on their page, but I can address it here and be like, okay, well, anybody who listens to this is bullshit.
Yeah. I think the problem is it's the same thing with anything. It's always, oh, you mean I can eat this one magical fruit and it'll cure all fucking everything?
Right.
Okay, well, I'll do that. See? I'm just...
Drink apple cider vinegar and you're going to lose 100 pounds in a month.
If you were to drink only apple cider vinegar,
actually,
I don't know. I don't think you lose 100 pounds, but you lose something because I don't think there's a lot of calories in that. And you might barf a little bit.
Did you know that it will also keep you from getting any sickness ever for your whole life?
Really?
All sicknesses. It'll take your pH level and it'll change your pH. That's why.
That's right. Yeah. So you'll never get cancer.
And don't forget about shoving the jade eggs up your ass or whatever other orifice you need to
remove the negative energy from your ass.
And make sure to do oil pulling rather than brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Don't even, every day, at least like twice a day.
All the woo.
Yeah.
Do it.
I find this so
We forgot to mention turmeric.
Oh, yes.
Turmeric's got to get in there somewhere.
Somewhere there's turmeric.
Turmeric lattes.
That might be interesting to do the woo challenge.
Then you'd look really jaundiced if you had a shower.
Take all the things.
Suddenly, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you're like totally unhealthy and just falling apart. I'm a breatharian now.
It's like that documentary Super Size Me, but like with woo.
Super woo me.
Super woo.
Super woo me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That documentary just made me want McDonald's so bad. Is that right? Did it make you hungry for McDonald's?
But all that woo stuff. If you avoided the stuff that says to either steam or put stuff in your body or orifices, I think it'd be fine to try out the rest of it for a while just to try it.
I believe the plural is orify.
Orifices. Orifices is a word. It's totally a word.
I know, I'm just harassing him.
Let's go to a commercial break.
No, let's go to a music break. You're right. That's better. How about some John Denver?
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug, or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
We
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of Clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
Use the code BRAINSTORM at absenceofclothing.com and get 10% off.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone, host of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I interview bloggers, podcasters, writers, and activists about the intersections of atheism, humanism, racial justice, feminism, LGBTQ rights, and other social issues. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher, and you can read my blog at freethoughtblogs.com/byanymeans. And remember, that's bi spelled B-I. Come take a listen to the musings of a queer humanist because, hey, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
And we're back. And we're going to go right into what the fuck.
Fucking what the fucking fuck? Who the fuck? Fuck this fucking. How did you do fucking fucks? Fuck!
Well, it certainly illustrates the diversity of the word.
All right, Angela.
I
What the fuck?
That movie again.
I can't wait for the new one.
So there's an article that talks about how, like, climate change is a thing. Some people don't believe it's a thing.
In case you didn't know,
climate change is a thing.
There is actual documented proof that climate change is a thing. But there is also a court case in Canada, in BC, that a man by the name of Dr. Tim Ball, who is a climate change denier from way back, he is talking. He's the defendant in this case. Wait, hang on. I did the research.
he's being sued?
Michael Mann and Hockey Stick Man is the guy that's basically trying to. Michael Mann produced a chart. Sorry, I'm all over the place all of a sudden. Now that now the table is actually mine. Oh God, I'm gonna fuck this up. Michael Mann produced a chart, and it looks like a big stocky hockey stick, hence the name.
Right.
And it basically it fudges the data a little bit, sort of, and it's so Mr. Ball wants, or Dr. Ball wants him to procure his evidence. But he says that, like, the article says that he can get him for contempt and get the case thrown out. And then Michael Mann is, like, guilty of contempt because he didn't procure his data, but the data is available. And so the concern is that this is going to fuck up the argument for climate change.
So they're saying that because Michael Mann somehow committed contempt of court for not giving up his evidence, that all the climate science that is available is null and void.
So there's one poorly done paper.
Yes.
I see.
Basically. So that's what the initial article, and then the like it seems kind of ridiculous to me that would be the case. The response to that goes a little bit deeper and talks about who Dr. Tim Ball is. He's a Canadian guy who is conservative scientist of sorts. And he's not really the most intelligent of people by the sounds of it.
Is he a climatologist?
He's actually, he considers himself the first person. I have to scroll through this stupid alien face. It's giving me the willies.
He considers himself.
He considers himself a philosopher
like
of
the
sorts.
first PhD, the first PhD in climatology in Canada.
Oh, he considers
That's
himself.
what he considers himself. He thinks that he is the be all and the end all when it comes to climate research. And he thinks that he's the tits.
How did he decide that he could do that?
I don't know.
I mean,
you can't just do that. The PhDs in things like those come from bodies of like academia or like other organizations. Schools.
So
like,
did you mean that he considers himself to be the first PhD? Like, what is actual PhD in? Like,
if
geology
I
or
remember
what?
right, because like someone else has brought this one up before, is that they're trying to argue that now I'm kind of confused with it, but basically that the fact that Michael Mann's chart is too regular, that they say he cherry picked the data, and that's where they're at. And then this Tim Ball's one is because of the high temperature before, and then it's not as regular. It's like the big spike in the modern era. They're trying to say is bullshit.
Oh,
and that's where it all gets screwy.
They're trying to say it's bullshit.
Yeah.
So
to answer your climatology PhD question,
okay.
Ball and the organizations he is affiliated with have repeatedly made the claim that he is the first Canadian PhD in climatology. Ball himself claimed he was one of the first climatology PhDs in the world. Many have pointed out that there have been numerous PhDs in the field prior to Ball.
Right.
Sorry, but what was the degree? Like, what department was it? Where did he go to school?
Ball was a former professor of geography.
No, geography.
That's not climatology.
Well, presumably there might be some
Professor of geography at the
crossover,
University
perhaps?
of Winnipeg from 88 to 86. The University of Winnipeg never had an office of climatology. His degree was in historical geography and not climatology.
Yeah, so I think you could potentially get, like, there might be a geology department that has a subspecialty of climatology nowadays that you could do. But he's just saying, well, I did my PhD in geography, but it was focused on climatology, and that's what I think that's what he's claiming. And honestly, you get scientists who are very egotistical, and they're very like you don't think like, you think scientists are no, like they're not, they can be as dickish as anyone else. And oftentimes I think the field attracts people who have like this ultimate confidence in themselves and this like inability to see themselves making any mistakes. Like that, it's very common. It's not like it's scientists are humans too.
Yes.
Some of them.
So this
except for the ones who are robots.
The rebuttal article that you posted, Corey, about this one from scienceblogs.com talks about this. It kind of goes into a little bit more detail, and it's kind of an interesting article, and hopefully the link will be in the show notes.
It should be at thebrainstormpodcast.com, even if it's not quite at brainstormblog.net quite yet.
Yeah. And I think like they talk about this commenter on the Science Blog website called Starchild, who seems like an interesting dude. And they talk about a dude named John O'Sullivan, who has also come out against climate change, like the climate change theory. Well, it's a fact. Fuck it.
The thing is, like you said, problem is it's been so long since I've read on this stuff. Like I read this article, but I found it to be kind of a confusing article. But
it was hard to follow.
Is that all this stuff is none of it disproves climate. It just muddies the fucking waters. Because in this one they make a big deal about the medieval warming period, and and there have been over times there have been mini ice ages and various things like that, and they claim that see is just part of the natural cycle, and it's like, well, true to a point, but when it dips into the when it starts to spike, or drop, it's a couple degrees. It's not like consistently summer after summer after summer, consistently, this one was hot. Oh, this one's even hotter still. It's
the same with ocean acidity and salinity and temperature of the water and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It says here on Wikipedia, Ball has worked with Friends of Science and Natural Resources Stewardship.
Friends of Science.
And the Natural Resources Stewardship Project, which both oppose the scientific consensus on global warming.
Yes.
And he's a former research fellow at the Frontier Center for Public Policy. He also rejects the scientific opinion on climate change, stating that CO2 is not a greenhouse gas. He's not a
He rejects-
climatologist. He's also not a fucking base chemist. Sorry.
Sounds like he rejects physics.
Yeah, CO2
right.
is most obviously a fucking greenhouse gas.
Yes.
Sounds like
Venus
he just rejects. Yeah.
It's an interesting article, and it's I don't know. The Star Child thing is, but Dr. Timball is a fucking weirdo.
I think he's a bit of a quack.
He is.
Sounds like.
That's the more articulate way of saying it.
But also when you're doing your research papers like that, a lot of times if you're going over hundreds of years, you'll take a broad swipe at the temperature. Like you're not worried about getting exact pinpoints on a graph. You're worried about general trend.
Yeah.
That's all he was working for.
The long.
Who cares what the spikes are? What are the averages?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Is I think
That's
they're
all
trying to argue that he cherry picked his data, and well, what about the medieval warm period? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
when you're stretching it over a couple millennia,
Yeah.
Well,
one
and
little
also
spike doesn't mean shit.
the letter that was provided by Michael Mann's lawyer indicates that he's freely cooperated with the court and
Right, of
provided
course.
the information, and the court decision is not whether to decide whether climate change exists or not.
Because
That's
a court can't do that.
exactly. So it's bullshit. It's total bullshit.
I mean, to be fair, as a scientist, you can, depending on how you process data, like statistically, you can potentially get a variety of answers. And I mean, a good scientist will use like an unbiased method of statistical analysis in order to come up with an answer that is most fair. But you know how one lab might analyze as a group a set of data might be different from how another lab might do it. I mean, really robust, good results will have the same result no matter how you process it.
Right.
But I mean, it certainly is possible to finagle things, and when you're the one doing the processing, it's so like, there's so many details in that it's quite hard, quite easy, I think, would be to hide. But the thing is that it's not this. That would be one thing, but having a community of scientists internationally who say our consensus is that climate change is real and is caused
Right.
by human activities. I mean, that's not something that ever happens unless there's very overwhelming evidence in that.
Michael
for
Mann
that.
is a target because he wrote the hockey stick model or theory or whatever whatever his book title is. So he's a target of anti-climate change people. So actually, it'd be nice to get him on the show sometime. But
You should try.
I might contact him for something next year. Since we're booked up all the way
Just let
to
him
the end
know
of the
that
year.
we're anti-vax woo podcasts.
That's right.
And want to debate them.
We don't like the science.
No.
All right.
It was cold outside, so science says that you're wrong.
Let's jump to
There's
some
snow on
religious
the ground.
nuttery.
Cornerstone, this might be new to some of you. Scripture says that even our righteous deeds are as filthy rags to God. So even the good things that you do, even things like feeding the hungry and clothing the poor and taking in widows and orphans, as nice as those things are, if not done from the place of obedience to and a relationship with God, are completely worthless and disgusting to God. If you're not daily walking in a place of relationship to God, then the news that we have to bring you is that you're on your way to hell right now.
Okay, Lisa, what do you got?
Oh, I've got a cute little article. It's funny, honestly, more than anything, it's funny. It's from RT.com. The Vatican rules the body of Christ can't be gluten-free. So it turns out Pope Francis has weighed in on the matter of religious bread making by reminding his flock that the body of Christ is not gluten-free. So apparently there was a letter circulated to Roman Catholic bishops. The Cardinal Robert Serra of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments was instructed by the Pope to tell church members about the correct ingredients of the bread and wine given to Mass celebrants. So, quote, hosts that are completely gluten-free are invalid for the celebration of the Eucharist, according to the letter, which was translated by Vatican Radio. It adds that bread made from another substance, even if it is green, does not constitute valid matter for the sacrifice and the Eucharistic sacrament. Low gluten hosts are valid matter, the letter continues. Those unable to consume bread or wine containing gluten are directed to drink a pressed fruit juice known as mustum. Ooh, that does not sound good. Anyways,
That's because it sounds like colostrum.
or musk. Anyways, so basically, if you're Catholic and you're going to a church that serves gluten-free host for oats, I don't even know for those who aren't initiated into the Catholic weirdness. So the idea is that you go to church and like, basically the whole point of mass going to church is to receive Jesus, who is actually bread, but he turns into the body flesh. Like Catholics believe this literally.
Oh, that's
happens.
A good one. I'm going to keep that one.
Yeah, and but this bread that you eat, which is just a flattened kind of cracker thing, which is delicious. Like honestly, like once in a while I get dragged to some Catholic shit and it's fucking delicious. Like it just reminds me of childhood. I don't know. Does anyone else have this?
No, I'm thinking of the
eating Jesus.
The Anglican version.
Jesus is so
that shit wasn't
good.
delicious. That was like eating styrofoam.
Sorry.
I don't know. There's something about the specific it's not good. It wouldn't be good to you. But like, because you didn't. If you didn't grow up with it, like tasting it, but it's a very specific. You're like, I'm like, oh yeah, and I taste it. Like,
we had grape juice and unsalted fucking crackers.
The thing about the sacrament,
you had saltines.
Yeah,
they turn into Jesus.
I swear we ate styrofoam. I swear.
I never found Jesus inside me, so I don't think they were.
If God wanted you to be Catholic, He wouldn't make you a celiac.
That's fucking true.
Mysterious ways, man.
But yeah,
mysterious ways.
I just thought it was funny. They were just like, no gluten. I mean, it's so fucking good.
Because
that's interesting to me.
It's one of the sacraments, and you can't get to heaven if you don't complete all the sacraments, and so therefore celiacs, unless they want to come close to death.
But they can drink the blood of Christ.
But it's not the full sacrament. You have to complete all the sacraments at some point in your life, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, no, you can't. There's one like you can either I mean, if you take holy orders or you get married, right? You don't necessarily always do both, unless
there is a substitution for
that's an or statement right there.
Yeah, but I think
there's no substitution for sacrament.
Yeah, for the sacraments, like you have to do like the what do they call that little thing? The Catholic bar mitzvah thing where you get like a...
Well, there's baptism.
Yeah,
there's reconciliation.
Okay.
There's first communion.
Yeah, that's
the thing where you eat the bread.
And then the confession.
Then
and
there's
the sacrament.
It's not called confession. It's called
reconciliation.
Reconciliation. Thank you. And then marriage. And that you can do them all. If you do marriage, then your spouse dies. Then you can take your holy orders. Then you take your last rites. If you want to be a super Catholic. If you want to be a super Catholic. How do you people not all know this shit from Catholic school, man?
I never went to Catholic
school. I remember my teacher talking about how like when she was like an altar girl, they would like gorge themselves.
How many Catholics are in the room or ex-Catholics?
I went through all of it.
What? Bispo?
I went through every single ritual.
But
so you're looking at like not even
when I went to Catholic school, they beat us and made us run around in snowshoes. That was my.
That was his Catholic experience.
Yeah.
Did you taste the wafer? That was so fucking good, right?
Yeah, it was like
I wasn't allowed
to.
And you were so hungry by the end, right? Because it was an hour-long fucking mass.
That's why it tasted good,
right?
Because the ingredients they're allowed to use it's wheat, water, and salt, isn't it? Isn't that the only ingredients they're allowed to use?
I don't know. It didn't taste salty,
but
there's alternatives too, though.
Yeah,
not gluten-free alternatives.
Just not gluten-free.
Just not gluten-free. Yeah.
No hipster Catholics. I don't know. Is that
Those
what it is?
poor celiacs.
Because celiacs are all hipsters.
Like quinoa.
I think
quinoa
I'm the only one here who's been drunk off church wine before. Probably. Hey? Is that
good
has
for
anybody
you?
else done that?
We never had real wine. We
I had
had fucking grape juice.
I had access to it as an altar boy, so I just
I stole my parents' vodka like everybody else.
I know you went to a ridiculous church.
It was ridiculous.
Hardcore.
Yeah, but I
remember
remember
those fancy display things that they put the little tiny cups in. We had tiny cups. The fancy metal cases with the tiny holes, and each that had the tiny 1 inch tall cups.
The tabernacle?
Little tiny shooters of grape juice. The blood of Jesus.
No, we didn't have that. We had the cup of Christ.
Yeah, but
You had to share
that shit
cups.
goes in the tabernacle.
That's unsanitary.
They did.
And then we had the
cloth.
No, they share a cup and they have a cloth and they wipe your spit from the person next to you off
With the same cloth?
The same cloth. And you drink from the same place.
Yeah.
That cloth, though, gets rid of all the microbes.
Oh.
Because of Jesus.
They really don't appreciate it when you go,
and also
I've
cotton.
never had the wine. Huh?
Cotton really absorbs the blood of Christ.
If it was actually the blood of Christ, they wouldn't need to disinfect.
That's right.
Because it'd just be pure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
they said the prayers. It's all good.
Anyway, that was it. I just thought it was hilarious. And also,
Fair
Catholics
enough.
are weird. That's all.
Catholics are weird.
All religious things are weird.
I'm going to a Catholic wedding in October. I can't wait to taste the body of Christ. So.
Are you sure they're going to do like?
You're gonna have Jesus
mass?
inside you again.
They're gonna do a whole fucking thing because they're doing like I'm pretty sure
Steal the
because
crackers.
they're doing the thing where they have to like do the course for like 2 weeks in order to actually get married in the church and shit. Like they actually make them jump.
Oh yeah, no, you have to do that no matter.
It's funny
what.
because the place where they
I
order
hope they do the whole fucking mass.
I've done
the
it.
place where they order the body of Christ, you can't actually order it. Only the churches can. So you can't even get your own.
I just hate everything.
You should
about
steal some.
religion. Like it really just all of it.
Except the awesome taste
dumb.
of the
So
But it
dumb.
says the letter comes from
tastes good, man.
Concerns that the ingredients of holy bread are readily available in supermarkets and even over the internet.
Fuck.
If you really wanted to make Jesus,
No, you can't though, because you could. Like I said, I had a teacher who said that she used to gorge on the wafers, like whatever, like when she was an altar girl. But that was okay because they weren't blessed yet, unless they're blessed, and then they go to mass, and the church, like the priest does his magic voodoo, doesn't fucking turn into the body of Christ yet. You can fucking make as many wafers as you want.
It doesn't
no
start out
fucking problem.
salty.
I think they take
It's after
issue
you eat
with
it
you
that it gets
using the
salty
term
after it
voodoo.
becomes a body
do
of
they
Christ.
taste good with cheese on them?
I don't know. They've never let me try that. But I used
Eucharist
to know.
wafers and salsa.
I still want to go to.
I get a
the
tiny
mass now and bring
slice
like
of
a thing spray
pepperoni on
cheese.
there. Would it be okay?
No, but I still remember it has to be left hand over right hand. You have to pick it up with your right hand, goes in your mouth, and then you do.
Actually, no. If you want,
No, I'm fucking right, dude.
No. Actually, the really devout people kneel, stick.
And they stick their tongue out.
Stick their tongue out, and you
Yeah,
can't
it's
touch
true.
it. You're not allowed to touch it.
I just hate this stupid
It's
shit.
amazing. What are you
Just-
fucking talking about? This is the best shit. This is the best shit.
It's so dumb. All right,
Dance for me, human. Yes.
Gumby, go ahead.
All right. Well, this one still isn't resolved, so I don't even know if it's really a story.
Okay.
Because it's still allegedly.
Ah.
But there's this girl named Henriette. She was 17. And allegedly her dad, Sammy Kara, killed her, stabbed her, because she's a Christian. She was an Israeli Christian dating a Muslim. And she was converting to Islam for her boyfriend, who was in jail. And that's all I got. I think it's crap, but he's still saying he didn't do it, and there is no hasn't been a trial yet or anything, so nobody knows for sure. But on June 13th, Henrietta, she deposited 400 shekels, which is about $113 in her boyfriend's prison canteen account. And when she returned home, she told her relatives that her boyfriend was getting out of prison at the end of the week, and she intended on converting to Islam. That relative called her father, told him of her plans, and it says that the father then decided to murder her according to the indictment. She was found dead in the kitchen of a parent's home with a stab wound in her neck, but he still contested he didn't do it, so I don't know. It's really tricky with matters of faith because faith is fucking stupid.
Absolutely.
But how would it be okay to lie about it later? Why is that okay? God will accept you to lie about it later? 'Cause you
Yeah,
won't
and
get in trouble?
that's the only thing. Like if he's that hardcore of a Christian, he wouldn't lie about doing it. He would. But,
Well, yeah, he would. Whatever. She's dead in his kitchen. Like, come on.
I don't know.
well, it depends. Depends how hardcore you are. If you're Old Testament,
They are in Israel.
yeah,
You can just confess.
And Old Testament,
you can
yeah,
just
you have
confess
to
at the
kill
end,
it,
and it's
right?
over, and it's
So-
fine.
Yeah.
You can be forgiven of all those things. So
I mean, this has a religious slant, but people have killed for just as stupid shit.
yeah.
You know, I mean, interracial marriage used to be illegal. There was people killed for flirting with people with different skin tones. I mean, people do stupid shit. It's not just religion, but it's a good cause.
Too bad that isn't still in effect, and that it doesn't count for orange people.
Yeah. Wow.
Religion is just one of the things that drives people.
It's a catalyst of idiocy.
One of many.
Yes.
One of many.
Although it's probably one of the main catalysts of stupidity.
One of, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to politics of a sort. What do you got for us, Leo?
All right, let's see how quick we can do this. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about identity politics. Just a quick little, I think most of us probably understand roughly what it's about, but some of our listeners might not. So identity politics is basically a political position focused on the interests of a specific social group. So that can be a very wide range of different groups, but that's kind of the definition of it. A little disclaimer before we start. I am not going to judge whether it is good or bad because I don't feel like I can. So first on the kind of the history and the good side of it, it was meant to be a way of giving oppressed people a voice, and it was popularized during the civil rights movement where people like the Black Panthers and Martin Luther King, they kind of started building a movement not only of Black people joining the movement, but getting white people to join the movement, the identity of the civil rights movement. Right. So that was kind of one of the first famous cases, though you can't say that that's where it originated because it has probably been around for a long time, but not by that name. So initially that when it became popular, the point was to give oppressed groups, minorities, and identity groups a voice in a way of mobilizing for political action. This includes later on the LGBT, feminist, pro-choice, labor, veteran, ethnicity, generational economic interest, a variety of movements that can be based around a social group or identity of a group in society.
So anything that a person can identify with?
There's no real limits of what you can. It's kind of on an individual basis. If you have a social group that has a kind of a unique identity, you could, and they push for some kind of political agenda, you can kind of label them. So it's kind of a very slippery term.
So white Christian evangelicals are engaging in identity politics.
I will get to that. So the kind of the positive things that we've seen is people like the LGBT, civil rights, feminists.
The Brony Club of Canada.
But there's been a lot of positive movements over the years, but also it has been a way of raising awareness for some of the issues that sometimes get overlooked or not talked about.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, it can be a tool for oppression, not to relieve oppression, but a tool to create more oppression, which it brings us to Lisa's point, like the Christian right, like racism and anti-LGBT, anti-feminism, and anti-life or anti-choice.
Right.
Or pro-life, anti-choice. So these are kind of the equal and opposite identity groups that can join and can do the same thing. So it's kind of from the perspective of the person who views this, a pro-choice person thinks that the pro-life people are a hateful group, and the pro-life people think that the pro-choice people are a hateful group. So it kind of depends on the perspective of the person judging the group. But so they can be, in our view, both good and bad identity groups. So this naturally creates divisiveness. And so this creates tension because a lot of the times when you don't agree with a group, then you are immediately labeled as anti that group or anti that identity.
Right.
So it can escalate very quickly into hating the identity and not debating the issue, which is one of my major criticisms of how this can turn into something that is completely unproductive, where the focus shifts from the issue to the identity of the group.
Well, we see that happening in the atheist movement. Right, like right now in the skeptics movement, you see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just as easy examples for our listeners.
But coming back to the definition of identity politics, I mean, people tend to mean left-leaning identity groups when they refer to identity politics, and it's typically used pejoratively now. Like, I don't think anyone's really using it. Nobody's owning it. Like, yeah, that's right. I do identity politics. It's like, like no, it's like it's totally not.
It's always like identity politics is ruining this country.
Yeah, it's been spun to be a negative term.
Well, it definitely has been, and that kind of comes out of the nastiness of the history, where we in this room, and probably most of our listeners and everybody should agree that the civil rights movement was a very positive identity politics movement. But you have people who at the time did not see it that way.
Right.
Of course.
And then it creates that tension where that identity sucks. And and then they stop talking about equality, and we should all just becomes an us against them, and that can happen with any group. You have baby boomers hating millennials, and that can technically be a form of identity politics if you frame it right.
Right.
But so it very quickly.
Actually, I would argue that doesn't even take a lot of framing. That's just,
but it very quickly just devolves into that where the groups turn on each other and the issue gets lost.
I'm just saying nobody would, like the civil rights movement, even as it exists now, would never want to identify themselves as identity politics, right? And I know it's kind of been a thing that I think conservatives have been pretty successful doing, to put a negative spin on, like, I think the same thing happened with feminism. Feminism has like a negative connotation amongst a lot of people. I mean,
yes,
which is something people are trying to take back, but identity politics, definitely no.
And the term has been poisoned by the controversy of of just kind of how it works in practice. Though in theory, it seems like a good idea.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to do a bit of a deeper dive on that sometime in the future.
I think it would be we could definitely talk about that for a while. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah. So I'm going to slam out some listener feedback quick. I've had some great chats with some of our listeners about a variety of subjects through Facebook Messenger. I talked with one listener about the welfare state and its part in society, and he runs the Apparetic Skeptic Facebook page. I'll post a link to that in the show notes. Our good friend Will commented on my latest YouTube video. Thanks, Will, for the kind words. And if we have extra time or a decent amount of support on Patreon, then we may actually incorporate video into our podcasts. If you want to chat with us, then you can follow the show on Twitter @BrainstormPod. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/BrainstormPodcast, or join our discussion group, the Brainstorm Podcast Discussion Group. Or email us at mail@brainstormblog.net for your email to be read on the air. If you have questions or thoughts and want to remain anonymous, then just let me know in the email, or you can message me on Facebook. The URL for that is facebook.com/CJBrainstorm. We got one more patron this month.
Woohoo!
Magnus Bjorn. Thank you very much for your patronage.
Thank you, Magnus.
This may well be the last reminder for listeners that we're changing our Patreon support schedule. So now you will be charged every week when the new episodes come out. You still have access to the full show with ads removed every 2 weeks, but the charge will come every week when the public episodes come out. You can go into your pledge settings and set a limit so that you don't feel like you're being charged more than you can afford. Thanks to all our patrons, you make the show possible. We got an iTunes review. Someone named Green Shirt said, "Been enjoying and learning from these good freewheeling folks. They've exposed me to individuals and experiences unfamiliar to this old white male. And I truly thank you for this. Keep up the great work." So thanks, Green Shirt.
Wonder if that makes him a Rider fan.
I almost assume.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Or a Packers fan, I guess.
Or, yeah, possibly. Remember that if you give us a rating and write a review, then it really helps out the show, and we'll read your review on the air. Just remember to shoot us an email at mail@brainstormblog.net to let us know which store to look in. I've just got, anybody got stuff to plug quick?
Nope. No plugs.
No plugs. Okay. The 8th episode of The Hardcore Skeptic Examines Social Justice is out. You can find that at Spreaker.com/Hardcore Skeptic Examines or Spreaker.com/show/The Hardcore Skeptic Examines. Let's hit that outro music. An outro music? Just the outro music. You can find show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net, eventually. Thanks to our financial supporters, Will, Lisa, Rob, Aaron, Nathan, Daryl, Marissa, Stephanie, Positively Skeptical, Michael, Lachlan, and now Magnus. You can join us live every second week when we broadcast live on Spreaker. You can find us at Spreaker.com/user/brainstormpodcast. Our next guest is Louis Vaughn, author of Star Map, A Journey of Faith, Doubt, and Reason. Looks like we're out of time. Thanks to Gleb Spursky for joining us again. You can find out more about the Pro-Truth Pledge at protruthpledge.org. There will be a link in the show notes. Thanks, Dave, for our intro music. Thanks to Alex Kapper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for the intro and some of our ads. And thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. I think that's everything. Give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Corey, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interaction sometimes with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.